Come on then, come on. It's exciting when you find them, isn't it? There's nothing here, but there are a few in the corner. So come on, let's go get them. Well, ironically, in the 2 minutes that it's taken me to run back and come back with the barra, there isn't much sign of activity, and that's how quickly like it can happen and stop, and you can really easily miss it by doing laps. It sometimes pays just to spend 10 minutes in a swim watching. Sometimes they swim past you, sometimes they've just gone for a lap. If I'd walked into it now, I wouldn't think that there were any fish here, but I know that 2 minutes ago they were sheeting up down there on the bait that I put out. I'm just going to watch for a few minutes and see what happens. If they're there, then fishing for them, we can fish for them without spooking them, but you can see by this swim, by the very nature of it, we're in a quiet corner. Anything that we do will disturb them. How do you get a bait in amongst those fish without disturbing them? For me, that's the issue. I haven't got time to wait till tomorrow morning. I need to catch one, you know, before I get bored. Might try to just put a handful of flake down and we'll just see if anything comes out to investigate and feed on it. Just watch it for a couple of minutes. Okay, well I could float fish for them there, but I think I'm going to go for the pole and drop a bottom bait rig. They're sheeting up. It's a really tight corner, there's a snag, there's a lot of pads. I'm not convinced I'm going to land one on the float. I'm going to go for the brute gear, 20-pound line, big hook. We'll give it a few minutes, see what happens. Oh, he's sheeting up as well, isn't he? Just 2 straight bottom baits, no balancing, no critical, no pop up. I don't want it wafting around as they feed. I'm fishing quite a short hook length even though it's in the silt, but you can see by the way they're tearing that up that they've got their heads right in it. So even if that does get slightly obscured, I'm going to trust that it's still fishing. If we don't get a bite, well, then it obviously wasn't. That sounds quick enough for me. Just for the record, that is shelf life boilies. You know them shelf life that carp don't like to eat? Look at that. I don't bother with frozen anymore, mate. So I'll put my bait in, take the woodlouse out. So I don't want a woodlouse on the spot. Literally just enough bait for a bite. I don't need a lot of bait out there. I mean there's thousands of tiny particles there that's going to keep those fish rooting around. Hopefully long enough for them to pick up the hook bait. Do you know what? I'm going to need another section. So foreshortening over water. Okay, well he's still fizzing out there, and it is, even with the pole, hit and miss as to whether you spook them, particularly on this lake where there's no bird life. On Horton it's much easier because they're used to the coots and the swans. We won't know whether we've got away with it for a few seconds yet because the bubbles that were coming up when I dropped it, they sort of linger a little while. He's ripping it up now. He did just move off when the bait went down, but he's back, what, 5 minutes later. There's actually 2 feeding. You can see 2 separate sets of bubbles now, unless he's just moved really quickly. He's not far off the bait now. Not far at all. This is the only time I really enjoy sitting behind static rods. I mean, because I can see the fish feeding out there. You know, it's not quite watching them take the bait, but you still get that tension, you know, you still get that expectation. And when the bite comes, it's still out of the blue, you know, even when you're waiting and watching them feeding over the rig, there's still that surprise to it. Come on, come on. How do you fish for bubblers? You cast at them. What happens when you cast at them? You spook them. What happens when you spook them? You've got to wait. I'm not interested in waiting any longer. You know, if I can get a bite really quickly by dropping a bait on their head and not spooking them, then surely that's the biggest edge that you can have in fishing. There isn't a bigger edge than that. Did he pick up the hook bait then? Come on, come on. Come on then, come on. It's exciting when you find them, isn't it? There's nothing here, but there are a few in the corner. Come on, let's go get them. Oh, he's right on it. 2 of them. Oh, this is when your heart is beating out of your chest. I mean, he's not feeding right on top of me, but this is the buzz, isn't it?